This episode of the Gooner Ramble is sponsored by the new sporting betting app called Bookie. That's Bookee. Sign up using the promo code podcast, deposit and bet £10 in multiple bets for a free £10 bet. Please bet responsibly.
Hi, I'm Iyare and welcome to the Gooner Ramble podcast in what has been one of the most tumultuous weeks in Arsenal history. Certainly Arsenal's history of the last 2 decades. And I'm joined today, Akhil's here. Are you here with us, Akhil?
I am, mate, I am. How you doing?
Dave Seeger's in the house as well.
He is, thank you for having me.
Yeah, you are entirely welcome. Thank you for being with us. And Nick Callow's here as well.
Evening, gents. All good to be hearing you all loud and clear.
This is amazing. And Chris Howard, you're with us as well, aren't you?
I sure am.
There you go. I mean, it has been a tumultuous week, shall we say? I mean, if you're a follower of the Arsenal, I'm not sure if there's been a week quite as emotional as this for quite some time. Gentlemen, how are you feeling?
Well, go on, Nick. Go on.
I am. It is. I am feeling emotional. It's been. It's a bit. It's not like someone's died. In fact, Arsene, covered the match on Sunday, and Arsene was very emotional in his press conference. And when he wasn't sort of talking too seriously, he said, "I now know what it's like. I now know what it's like when what it's going to be like when I die, because it's been like my funeral. Everyone's been paying these sort of tributes to me. Not, some of them are actually far too generous. Some of them are a bit harsh, but I now know what everyone's going to say about me when I'm gone, so I don't need to die anymore." And so it's almost like he's felt a death, and it was just the timing of it. I got a phone call at 9 o'clock on Friday morning saying from one of our broadcast clients saying, "Could you stand by to get someone down to the ground? Because we hear there's going to be an announcement at 10 and it could be Wenger out." And I just told the guy where to go. I said, "No, it's going to be something to do with tickets for the Atletico Madrid match or a sponsorship deal. It's not going to go now." And he did a press conference 24 hours ago. But it's all about Arsene and Arsenal, not about me. But, it's very emotional. Life goes on. The king is dead. Long live the king. I'm afraid that's the way of football and that's the way of the world. So the players, and we have to get on with it.
Yeah, we do. And what about everybody else? Where were you? Where were you when you heard the news?
It is going to turn out to be a where were you moment. Seriously, I was asking people on Sunday at the game that as well. And everyone just had fascinating stories, and some you thought they were very exaggerated. But it was one of those surreal moments where when I was talking to people on Sunday, where they were saying that they ended up ringing like their long lost uncle or their dad that they haven't spoken to for about 3 months, or their wife that they divorced 4 years ago. It was one of those weird moments where people because it hasn't happened in so long, it's the biggest change we've seen at our football club in over 22 years, that it came a time, and the only change we've seen in this sort of digital kind of, digital world sort of thing. So it was completely surreal. I mean, I was at work and I couldn't work the rest of the day. I mean, I won't bore you with the actual story, but the people that I was working with at the time, I saw it on an Apple Watch, not my Apple Watch, by the way. Can't afford one, but I saw it on someone's Apple Watch, and I'll never forget that person now, ever again. I'll never forget that Apple Watch. I'll never forget it was BBC that broke it to me. It's just surreal.
And what about you, Chris? Where were you?
Yeah, I was sat at my desk and subsequently got absolutely bugger all done for the rest of, for a large part of the day. And what was really, kind of what Akhil said, what was really strange was all of a sudden, all of my friends and family, certainly the non-Arsenal fans, they're all texting me, or I'm getting messages on Facebook, or there's messages on Twitter. And my phone literally kept pinging every few minutes. And obviously, when you're trying to sit at your desk looking at Sky Sports News, and then your phone keeps pinging off, and then you're responding to somebody, and then I got a phone call from the person that actually brought my love affair to Arsenal to life by taking me to my first game. He phoned me up, and it was it was very surreal, because all of a sudden it wasn't just, it's not, and this is the great thing about football. It wasn't just about Arsene Wenger. It was actually about all of us. Like, all of us suddenly, any true diehard Arsenal fan will have probably gone through the same experience as me, which is non-Arsenal fans are all getting in contact, texts from your brothers, from your sisters, from your parents, from the wife. My wife just messaged me after about 3 minutes past 11 and just said, Wenger's gone.
I thought for a second you were going to say my wife messaged me after 3 years for a second there. Sorry, mate.
Yeah, so strange.
Yeah, and I mean, I suppose it's kind of like, are you kind of, are you working through the whole kind of, all of the different stages now? I mean, obviously, the first one was shock. I remember I looked at the kind of update that came through on the phone, and I thought, nah, and I put it to one side. It just didn't go in the first time, and then I had to look at it again a few minutes later. So how are you guys actually feeling now? Are you kind of still in shock, or are you working through the stages?
Well, who's at denial?
It didn't happen.
I wrote them down.
It's all a long dream, isn't it?
Yeah. Happy, then sad, then shock, then denial, because I don't actually think it's happening, and then suddenly you're excited because it is happening. I think I'm now at confusion. I don't know where I am.
Of course. I mean, the thing is, I suppose it's obviously we've never had this before. It's kind of hard to kind of process it all, but, have you allowed yourself to move forward? Right, Nick. Sorry, Nick.
Yeah. Well, I mean, so, part of my job and, all the other journalists is trying to sort of not predict, but to trying to get our heads around and see what's going to happen next. And, having spent the whole of Friday outside the ground, doing what we call vox pops, interviewing fans to get their reaction. I mean, a couple of blokes I spoke to, I said, "What are you down here for?" He said, "Well, I just couldn't believe the news. I had to, I've been expecting it and waiting for it for so long, but I actually had to come down here and stand out here just to really think and find out that it was really true." And then in the early evening, we had Ivan Gazidis doing a press conference, and the pressure's on him now. Him and the board have been hiding behind Wenger for the last 5, 6, 7 years, however far you want to go back. And Wenger's taken all the bullets and taken all the flak for them. Now they've put their head over the parapet. They've engineered the situation for him to go, and the pressure on them is to get the right man in to take the club forward. And a lot of the questions were, do you think you're up to it? Because, without putting too fine a point on it, you haven't had great experience on it. And he went on to this very long, slick Ivan Gazidis style speech about how he'd bought in Mittenstadt from, Dortmund, and Sanieri from Barcelona. And he said, we've even got some board members who are old enough to remember before Arsene Wenger and I used to run the MLS for 10 years or something, whatever it was. And he said, we've got more than enough experience. We've got Stan Kroenke and Josh Kroenke. And I think, oh my God, do these guys, but
you don't spend millions of pounds bringing in a director of football from Barcelona and do this yourself anyway. I mean, Gazidis should have an input, but you've brought in one of the top guys in world football in theory. This is Raul's job, isn't it?
Yes, it is. Yeah, but but I think Gazidis wants to be seen as the person who's sort of heading up this team. It's not going to be his decision, but someone is going to have to sort of stand up and front it up and take responsibility for it. And it seems to me at the moment it's him. Although, as we all know, probably it was Stan Kroenke's decision to award Wenger a new deal at the end of last season against every single wish of every other single board member at the club. So there's no point speculating really who's going to come in, because there's good arguments for all these German guys and Enrique and so on. But it's their job. It's our job as reporters to report the facts. If we can get some inside information, great. As supporters, you just have to get behind the team, whoever's in charge, and just hope it works out. like we did when Arsene first came in and all the Arsene who stuff. And,
I think I think we'll see a lot of Ivan speaking and things. I think he'll certainly be the main spokesperson, as it was for this kind of campaign, this project of getting a new manager in. I think the actual decisions will be, spread between the guys you've mentioned, but I think we'll see a lot of Ivan this summer. Because I think finally he probably feels a little bit like he can now come out and speak. For so long, everything he said was kind of countered by Arsene Wenger. Ivan briefed about a director of football. Suddenly Arsene Wenger's saying in a press conference he doesn't know what a director of football is, and do they just tell players to go left or right? Catalyst for change. And Arsene Wenger suddenly said, what catalyst for change? So I think it's finally where he can now have his moment, and I think we're going to get a lot of him speaking. I think he'll head the team up for sure.
Yeah. I think him and Josh Kroenke have been the main movers here, because I don't think many people realise this, but Gazidis moved his office from Highbury House to Colney at the beginning of the season.
Yeah, or he took an additional office. Yeah,
but it's been increasingly uncomfortable for Wenger, because that was what David Dean did. Gazidis had never been anywhere near Colney on a daily basis, and suddenly he's there every day. And it's him that's bringing in all these new people, and every time Josh Kroenke's over, he's with Gazidis. So I think Wenger's been increasingly unsettled by the whole thing, and I think, you're right. I think Gazidis will be the voice of it, but I just don't see the point of spending millions of pounds on Raul if you're not going to let him make the decision, which is why I think it may well be Enrique.
Well, it was interesting that in the last sort of public fans forum, the one that happens every sort of 6 to 7 weeks, Ivan did take Raul wins. It's normally Ivan Gazidis, Mark Canella and Mark Brindle, and I think Alan Francis, who sort of heads up the Purple members and all that sort of stuff. But he did take Raul with him to do a little bit, and Raul did speak a little bit. So it does seem like Ivan and Raul are started a fairly close relationship. And again, this is now Ivan's team, isn't it? It's a major difference to what it was like before. It's his team. There's no more Dick Law, and there's no more, whoever else. It's now Ivan's team. So I think now you'll see him really flourish, or at least try and flourish.
Or fall flat on his face.
Well,
it's one or the other, isn't it?
Yeah, well, yeah.
We hope so. So, can we speculate, if not about the manager, do you think we have any idea how soon we'll hear a decision? Chris, you got any thoughts on that?
Well, I think they definitely do it. They won't do it before the season finishes. So hopefully we're hoping that season finishes as late as possible, and we've got a nice silver shiny trinket tucked under Arsene's arm as he comes back and parades that. And then I suspect it'll be done before the World Cup. I think they'll be crazy not to. And the World Cup is 7th, 8th of June, 9th of June, around about that time.
It's a bit later this year, actually.
Oh, is it?
It's later in June.
So I think we're basically talking about a 3-week window, mid to late May through to early June, there'll be some sort of decision made. Because if you think about it logically, if you're going to be the manager of Arsenal Football Club, there's going to be a lot of your players that are at that World Cup, and you're going to get your first proper look at them as a manager. All right, you're not going to get, it's a bit different because they're playing for their national team, but you're still getting your first proper look at them. And with a shortened pre-season because of the World Cup, and because of the way that the transfer window is as well, you've got to make your decisions on players fairly quickly. So I suspect they will be doing this. Yeah, my gut feel is end of May, beginning of June, we should have heard something. But this is Arsenal. And we do love to procrastinate.
It probably rules out Jurgi Low in the way it's happened and the timing of it. If this decision had been made at the end of the season, I think Low would have been very much still in the running. But I think it's because it's been made now. I think whilst he was one of the early favourites, I think probably he'll be dropping out of it because he obviously wants to concentrate on retaining his World Cup before he makes a decision. And as you say, Chris, I don't think we can wait that long.
Well, I think for me, what's interesting as well is, it's players like Aaron Ramsey. Like, will Arsenal want him to go off on his summer holidays without signing a contract? But is Aaron Ramsey going to sign a contract without knowing who the next manager is? I know there's rumours that he's close, but is he actually going to actually sign without knowing who the manager is? I think generally Arsenal have been quite good at keeping things quiet and doing things quietly. You know, sort of in the last 4 or 5 years, I think back to the Mesut Ozil signing, how it just, you know, we didn't have a whiff of it 2 or 3 days before, and things like that. And with this Wenger stuff, in truth, we haven't really known what's going on. I know there was strong sort of rumours from newspapers earlier in the year that it could be his final decision, but no one really put their neck on the line because no one really knew. So, you know, you can see it kind of, I think, out of respect to Arsene Wenger, Arsenal will not want to announce anything until the season ends, until either at Huddersfield or obviously hoping it'll be in Lyon. But as soon as that's finished, you would expect some sort of an announcement. Once this long kind of farewell finishes, I think they'll want to announce something pretty quick. So I think, you know, Sky today said that, you know, Ivan Gazidis on Friday said they haven't started the process yet out of respect, but now they will. And then the guy on Sky says they literally started it the next day. So I think we'll get something fairly quickly after kind of the end of the last game, whenever that may be. Hopefully, early on.
Well, I don't want to move on too quickly. All right, but I wanted to kind of get an idea before we start kind of thinking about the job for the new man and you know, go down that road too far. Let's talk about the boss's legacy here. So, you know, I mean, for you, is his legacy still intact? It's been, you know, obviously we had 10 years of glory, 10 years of not quite what you would call, it's not ignominy, but not anywhere near as glorious as his first 10 years. Do you think his legacy is still intact, Nick?
Yeah, I think, you know, I find it strange even asking that question, to be honest with you, because, you know, he could have lost every match from January to the end of the season, and he'll still be Arsenal's greatest, most successful manager. You know, if you just judge him on trophies alone, that's, you know, he's without comparison. If you judge him on the ways he's developed, it transformed the whole sort of image of the club, the playing style. You know, I grew up in this great George Graham team that just ground up 1-0 to the Arsenal. I had my greatest ever night of my life behind the goal at Anfield in 89, and just loved grinding out those wins. And then to see that you could actually win playing good football just blew my mind. And then to win trophies as well, crikey, it's just incredible. So, and I think even above that, I mean, I know, you know, we haven't challenged for the league for such a long time, and there's been a strong feeling that he's carried on a little bit too longer than he should have done. He's still won more trophies in the last few years than some clubs, you know, had a sniff at in the last 20, 30, 40 years. You know, in the FA Cup it is not one of the big two trophies, but it's still a decent enough trophy. And if you're finishing in the top four, playing the Champions League at the same time too, that's one hell of a thing. But I think the thing that he did for me was he just always carried himself with such dignity and such grace and such a polite, decent human being. Someone mentioned it somewhere else today that, you know, if you remember back to that, I can't remember what year was that. I remember covering the match, that FA Cup tie against Sheffield United with Canu and Overmars, and we scored the goal, went through, you know, and we went through. And afterwards, before, I mean,
99 or something, wasn't it?
Yeah, we haven't finished. I think was it 90 or the year? I wasn't sure if the double year, but before we'd even finished writing our reports that day, word came up to the president that Wenger had said, "No, look, we'll just replay the match," you know. And that's, and, we did replay them. Of course, we beat them. And, it's just, you know, for someone who's been on both sides of the fence and, you know, the way he conducts himself in press conferences and with the media, and he really, you know, he just made a point on Sunday. He said, you know, people might think I've made some bad decisions, but I've worked not 5, 6, 6.5 days a week, 7 days a week for 22 years for this club. And every decision I've made, even if people think I've been arrogant, it's been for the club, not for me. And I believe him. I do believe him. And, I know he's upset some fans at the weekend, but, you know, he thinks that if you're in the Arsenal family, for want of a better word, you all pull in the same direction. And if you disagree with the manager, well, then that's fair. You know, he said, I'm ready to suffer to make people happy. And I think by that he means that's why he's willing to accept that, you know, he's been told this is the right time to go. I think if you don't get to your question, sorry, I'm rambling now because it is an emotional subject.
But Nick, just quickly,
his legacy is intact.
What happened at the press conference?
What happened at the press conference?
I mean, you talk, like, what do you think he meant?
Well, when you talk about the fans?
Yeah. As someone who was there.
Well, I'm just looking. I've got my notes here in front of me. I mean, he started off with very sort of functional. What do you think of the game, Arsene? He just went through sort of quite sort of teasing. Oh, this is my perfect sort of match. Breaking down the stubborn opposition. We need to be patient. And he said, "What's the mood like? Because we're professional. Whatever's happened in the background, as if it was some nothing thing. We just carry on, and we're professional people." And then I think the next question, we were saying, well, it's a long time since we've heard people singing there's only one Arsene Wenger. And he said, well, look, I'm happy when the fans are happy. I'm ready to suffer to make them happy. But if sometimes they make me happy too, then I'm happy too. And then he said this thing about making all the decisions. But he did say, I don't think there's been enough unity. I'm just looking here, I can't quite say it. I don't think there's been enough unity. And he said I think he seemed to be thinking that we, the sort of fans who go to the games all the time, don't quite realise how big the club has become in the last sort of 22 years around the world and how respected it is. And we sort of maybe think, maybe people are laughing at us, but because we're not winning the league and the Champions League every year. But when he was pushed on this point about the fans, he said, look, no, I'm really not trying to, I'm not trying to blame the fans. Although if it's my personality and it's me that's getting in the way of taking this club forward, then I'm quite prepared and happy to step aside. It did hurt him. It clearly did hurt him. All the Wenger out business and the fact that the team was getting booed and he was getting booed, and it clearly got to him. But I don't think he really wanted to say that the fans were at fault for what's been going on for the last few seasons.
It was just typical of the BBC probably to just play that little clip on Match of the Day. Sums up the BBC, doesn't it, really? They just played a little clip that was taken out of context. They did. Well, okay. I watched the programme. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Well, I didn't see that, but I was getting in a row online with a mate this morning who was having a right old pop at Arsene, saying, yet again showing no regard for the fans. It's all about him, Arsene FC, and not Arsenal FC. And I said, hang on a minute, and I sent him a link to the whole press conference. I said, just watch 10, 12 minutes, whatever it is, and see it all in context. And he did. He said, I still haven't changed my mind. I still think he's completely out of order to even think about having a pop at the fans at this time. He's the reason the fans are upset, and there's been a lack of unity. So, even now, he's still dividing opinion.
No, Dave, just on Dave's point, before they showed the match of the day, before they showed the press conference clip, they showed the BBC interview he had done, where he was saying stuff about, it's very nice, he's quite honoured, and he wants to thank everyone and stuff. They did show all that. It was Sky, I thought, that did what you said and just showed that. That was their main headline. They showed that first.
I didn't watch Sky. I only watched Match of the Day.
Right. Sky were worse. But sorry to interrupt. No, please.
No, carry on. I just think, well, he should have, if he's talking about the people we think he's talking about, which is not the overall fan base, particular vocal elements of or on social media or on fan television, or if it is then maybe he should have identified it, because it's not as if he hasn't done this before. He has blamed the general fan base for our ills in the past, and he does have a track record for it. So I just thought it was a shame he did it on that particular day. And if he was going to do it, he should have been a bit more specific and sort of made a general point about the fan base.
I mean, if you don't mind, I'll just read out exactly what he said towards the end of the press conference. I've got it here in front of me. There was one. I almost thought he was going to cry at one stage when he was talking about how the fans were singing his name and stuff, because his voice did crack a bit, and he looked tired and emotional and exhausted. He certainly wasn't relieved, which I thought he might have been. I think he still feels he can do the job. But anyway, going away from that, he says, someone said, you can't say that about the fans without being more, elaborating on it. He says, look, I'm not resentful. I do not want to make stupid headlines. I'm not resentful with the fans. I just feel if my personality is in the way of what I think our club is, for me, that is more important for me. That's all I want to say. It's nothing to do with the fans. The fans were not happy. I can understand it. That's my job, and I have to live with that. I can accept it. I don't know if it was damaging, I think, for the whole club, for that, but it was not corresponding with what I really feel our club is perceived and has to be perceived all over the world. And then he went on to say he travels all around the world, and wherever he goes, he feels respect for, just not for him, but for Arsenal. And, he doesn't want the club to be seen in a bad way. And I do believe him. Of course he's got an ego, but, I think he really does. He fell in love with Arsenal, and, he's given as you said, the best 20 years of his life to it.
Yeah, I think people ultimately, with a little bit of perspective, I think people will understand how much he's changed the club and how much he's reset our expectations as Arsenal fans. Because we would consider this to be an absolute disaster of a season. Absolute kind of watch. And, there's still a very good chance of a kind of a European trophy and, probably a top 6 finish. That is disastrous in Arsene Wenger's, in the club that he's built and the expectations he set. That's a disaster. So, what he's actually done and what he's actually achieved as a manager and how far he's kind of pushed the club, I think is without question. I think in a little while when everybody's had a chance to kind of really kind of get upset at a new manager, right? I think we'll see this era in a lot better way. However, I suppose, what I suppose has become clear over the last decade is maybe he wasn't able to now push the club to the next rung up. Whilst he's made a lot of incredible progress for the club, maybe this next step, and the higher you go, the harder it gets. This next step, he wasn't able to kind of get us over there. So what do you think? What are the key things, do you think? And let's work our way. Let's start with you, Akhil. What do you think are the key things you think a new manager has to do in order to help Arsenal to progress again?
Yeah, it's interesting what you say. I mean, just quickly on the legacy bit, I think for me, we sit in it every other week. It's the Emirates Stadium. Of course, all the trophies and the identity, maybe, all the beautiful football that we've played, maybe not so much in the last few seasons, but generally that's all been good, and that's all that, that is something we want to continue. But I think the Emirates Stadium is his legacy. I know financially now matchday revenue doesn't mean as much as it did when we started building the stadium, that we thought it would mean. But for me, that period, I mean, Sky again showed it today about that. From 2004, how much money we were spending, in 2004 when we signed Robin van Persie for $2.5 million and Matthew Flamini for 400,000. Chelsea had spent, 20 odd on Robin and Carvalho and Petr Cech and all the others, Joe Cole and all of those lot. Man United had just spent 27 million on Wayne Rooney. People were starting to spend and Arsenal at that time, even though we were still at Highbury, even though we were champions and, the kind of invincibles, we weren't spending that sort of money. So for me, that is, in 50, 60 years, I think that will be looked as a completely, genius time. I think it's more sort of post 2011-12 is where the debate, you can kind of debate it all you want. But what does the next manager have to do? I mean,
So before you move on, so what do you reckon? Do you reckon the idea of of them renaming the stadium, this Paul Merson idea that they should rename the stadium Arsene Wenger Stadium? Yeah. What do you think of that then? That's his legacy.
I don't think it'll happen. I don't think the Cronkies would turn down X million for a deal like that, because obviously if you have to drop the naming rights, then you lose money, and I'm not sure how Emirates would feel about the Emirates Arsene Wenger Stadium or anything like that. So personally, no, I think there'll be a statue.
They're Arsenal fans. If
they're not. They're not.
They should. The Emirates Arsene Wenger Stadium seems reasonable to me.
There'll be a statue.
Maybe we need to get Matthew. Maybe we need to get Matthew Flamini's money. But
there'll be a statue, and rightly deserved. And let's remember those, the 4 statues out there. They're pretty. They are massive people in our history. Dennis, Iyare, obviously, and Tony Adams are quite modern. Herbert Chapman, so I mean, Arsene Wenger would be in the correct company there and things like that. So, I don't know if people think he deserves more than a statue, and maybe, I don't know, that's a debate for another day, but a statue there, and I think he
better to name
he
a
should
stand
be proud.
after him. Better to name
Yeah,
a stand
maybe. Yeah,
after him.
yeah, maybe a stand.
Yeah, I mean,
Like
one thing's for
United
sure.
did.
Surely the statue will be him in one of those big duffel bag things trying to do up his hill.
Definitely. Either that or kicking a bottle, one of the two.
Or with his arms out wide, like when he was at
Old Trafford.
Yeah.
There is all, of course. I think it's in that director's entrance, isn't it?
A bust
there is
thing,
a bust.
yeah.
There's a bust of him already there, which you can't really see unless you get right up close to the window or can sneak in there sometimes. But
do a stadium tour.
And they're not. I mean, as you say, I mean, in this, we've sold our soul to the devil in terms of money and football now, and unless there's going to be some crowdfunding that raises £100 million to rename the stadium, the Arsene Wenger Stadium, it's just not going to happen. But
it's funny. It's funny about the legacy though, because you would think that the logical legacy of Arsene Wenger is that the successor has to play the same style of football that we became famous for under Arsene Wenger, and we've definitely lost that identity. The Wenger ball doesn't exist to me at the moment. So the truth of the legacy would be that the board goes out and appoints someone who will play that same style of football, and that for me, I would agree with that. But what I find astonishing is, and I'm sure maybe you guys would agree with that, but there's the amount of people who would say Simeone if you asked them if they could choose anyone. There's as many people who would go for someone who's just going to win trophies without playing great football as who would want to play great football and hopefully win trophies. So I think, I'm not saying there's going to be a new divide in the fan base, obviously, but there is definitely a mixed view on the style of football we should play, whether it should be about the style or whether it should be about football that wins trophies. You've got the Mourinho style, the Simeone style, or you've got the Pep Guardiola style, let's say. And I would go with the Pep Guardiola style because that's what we've grown accustomed to. But I'm not sure all fans feel the same.
I think you have a real point.
Ivan talked about nurturing young players as well, didn't he, Nick, on Friday? About it's important. That's important to the club and continuing that path.
Yes, he did. Yeah, he went on and on about how good our youth team was, and in fact, David Moyes in his press conference after the match on Sunday was asked to make the comparison to how he had to follow. Well, he didn't have to, but he followed Ferguson at Man United. He said, "Well, the main differences," he said, was that I walked into a club that just won the league. We expected to win the league again, but we had an aging team that needed a massive overhaul. So he said, you come to Arsenal, you would not be expected to win the league because it's a long time since they won it. And it's largely, he felt, a young team. He said, we as in Arsenal, beat the West Ham under 23 team, I think, on Friday night. He said there were three or four Arsenal players in that under 23 team that could walk into most Premier League teams. And, he said, so any new manager coming in he's got less expectations. He's at a fantastic big club with great youth potential. And he said his quote was something like, every single elite manager in the world would love to be the manager of this club.
Sounds like a job.
I thought in the ring, that'd be a nightmare. Brendan Rodgers is bad enough, but David Moyes. So I don't know. It's as I said, I used to love grinding out those 1-0 to the Arsenal, but my head's been turned by Arsene. I think, I mean, even on Sunday, it wasn't sold out, was it? People still didn't come flocking into the grounds. It wasn't packed. The atmosphere wasn't great. And,
it will be on Thursday.
It will be on Thursday, but if we start playing, that's probably only because I think the tickets are just still too expensive. I was trying to help some people get some tickets on Sunday. They just can't afford 50 quid, whatever it is, just for a match, with the family and so on. So, I think we're not going to change the ticket pricing policy, but you need to get that stadium full and rocking, you need to have cheaper tickets as well as an attractive team. But cheaper tickets will make a huge difference.
So does Gazidis' comment on the bringing the youth through, do you think that would steer the type of manager we're likely to appoint? And would someone like a Nagelsmann or someone who's had that experience of, bringing youth through, is that something they're going to look for in a manager, or do you think they're just going to go for someone who's already the finished article?
If you're asking me, I mean, he made a very
general question.
Yeah, well, I'll just quickly make a point and move on. I mean, he did make a strong issue of bringing youth players through, which, you know, I don't know. I can't remember. I was reading about. I mean, I don't know all these foreign managers well at all, really, apart from Ancelotti because he's worked here. But I don't know. I mean, most managers, you know, need to be successful quite quickly to sort of stay in the jobs. And I don't think, and Gazidis made it clear, we're never have another manager given that amount of time, unless he just hits the ground running like Wenger did, who created his own power base by being so bloody good and winning so many trophies. So the answer is I do not know, but that's clearly what the club are looking for.
I think the club's not really got much of a choice. If they're either, their options are you've got to spend like United, like City, like Chelsea, or if you know you're going to have to find another way if you can't spend at that level. And I suppose developing players is the only other option. So I think they're going to have a manager that's prepared to do some of that, because then, you know, no manager is going to be able to come in and spend like Guardiola will be able to spend, or like Mourinho will be able to spend this summer. So I think that won't change for the moment, or do we think it might?
Well, we already are spending that money. I mean, you know, if Ramsey's contract gets signed, I would guess we're going to have 4 of the top 12 or so paid players in the league. You know, we've got Ozil on 300,000. We've got Aubameyang on 180 grand. We've got Mkhitaryan on 200 grand. There aren't many other clubs that have got 3 players with 180 grand and more wages. You know, so the question is, can we do it over and over again because of the sort of fair play and the percentage we can increase? So I think what you're looking at is a blend of youth and big money players, because we've broken the old socialist wage structure. So it is a balance. But this myth that we're not spending big anymore, crikey, you know, Lacazette and 2 players together is 120 million quid. The last 2 big signings. I mean,
the other thing as well is you've got to think that, and this is tied into whoever comes in as the next manager, because the next manager will not be able to come in and say, right, clean sweep, I'll have a new keeper, want another right back, top class right back, I need another left back, I need 3 central defenders, you know, I need to buy another ball winning central midfielder, I've got to get 2 wide players, so I'm going to need 180 million quid at least, please. It just won't happen. So the new manager coming in is going to have to, in terms of who do you want, well, it's going to have to be somebody who says, right, this is how we're going to set up. These are the players that I'm going to use. These are some of the youth players I'm going to bring through. You know, maybe there's 1 or 2 key signings that I'm going to make. It's not going to be somebody who's going to be able to just completely uproot the team, which goes back to your point, Dave, earlier about Simeone. Like, he's not going to be able to come in and just completely uproot the team to his style. And I think the structure of the team, we have to be realistic and look at, well, what are we as a team? What players do we have that can play in a certain way? Like, so we're not going to be able to suddenly, by August, have a side which defensively is absolutely rock solid. So for me, what I'd love to see, whoever the new manager is, I don't know who would be the best person for this. I'd love to see us just play a high press, because we've got quick players. We've got players that, if they have it drilled into them, can high press from the front, put teams under pressure, and let's just try and do what kind of like Liverpool do, rather than some of the other teams in the league that more build from the back or a bit more assured.
Akhil, what about you? Do you have a priority for the new manager? If he's going to be able to make 1 or 2 signings over the summer, where would you kind of have him focus his attention?
Yeah, I think it has to be in the priority areas. I mean, one thing is he has to get the best out of the players. He has to, you know, make those differences to players, give them something else to think about. And you know, the priority areas I think are pretty obvious. I mean, we've spent a lot of money offensively over the last 2 transfer windows, so it is on the other side. It's a goalkeeper, a central defender, probably need 2, but you know, at least 1. And then that kind of anchor man, that midfielder that everyone keeps talking about and has been talking about for years. What sort that is? Is it a Matic? Is it a Kante? Is it, you know, I don't know. That's for the new manager then to decide on his style and then decide on what he wants to do. But I think it has to be a sort of a tactician, you know, someone who's going to come and think, okay, especially if we do win the Europa League and end up back in the Champions League, then you sort of have to look at that and think, well, in terms of players, talent, and all that sort of stuff, I can't compete with Barcelona and Bayern Munich, Real Madrid, and even a few of the English clubs. So I need to kind of outsmart them, the same way sort of maybe, I'm not saying the Napoli manager, but the same way Napoli are pushing Juventus to the league, they won last night and all that sort of stuff. They have to change the way they play. Monaco, when they beat PSG, that's what you want the manager to do, to come in with fresh ideas and just improve, get a few of the priority areas, and then just kind of have a bit of a strategy to kind of win those big games again.
All right. Well, let's have
we obviously have to have a manager who's going to play two up front.
Well, we've got the two.
It's crazy not to. Crazy.
Yeah. Well, maybe.
So what about your thoughts for Thursday? Moving on slightly. Thursday, what do you think? Nick, just give me help me understand. Have we got a chance of kind of getting a result on Thursday?
Yeah, I mean, I was one of the few people amongst my sort of friends and other journalists who was not too distressed by the draw. And in a way, I'd rather play them in the semi-final than the final, because I think in the final, I think they would beat us, but I think over 2 legs we've got a good chance. Costa, it would be the big fear, but he's injured, isn't he? He's not going to play on Thursday. He's the sort of player that always bullies an Arsene Wenger Arsenal defence, like Drogba did before him, and he always did when he was playing for Chelsea. I think without him playing, and if Ozil's not as ill as he seems to be all the bloody time these days, and Lacazette, look, he ended the match super sharp on Sunday, didn't he? Welbeck is finally showing some sort of form, but it's just our defence and our goalkeeper, whoever's in goal, worries me. Arsene's biggest blind spot has been the goalkeeper. I mean, he's probably only signed one decent goalkeeper, Jens Lehmann.
Yeah.
And defensively, even against West Ham, we looked all over the shop at times. I've got a sneaking feeling we will do well. Having said that, I don't want to jinx it, but 1-0 will be a good result, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
I think he's going to go for it. I think he'll play Lacazette, Aubameyang, and Welbeck.
He can't play Aubameyang, can he?
Oh, sorry,
it's Europe.
No, I think he'll play Welbeck and Lacazette.
If he did play him, that would be good.
I mean, that would be really going out on a high and playing.
I've got some new rules here.
No, sorry, I meant he won't be going to percentage and playing someone like Iwobi. I think he'll go all out. I think he'll probably play Ramsey more advanced, and if El Nenny's out, which he obviously is, one of Maitland-Niles or Wilshere will play alongside Xhaka, but I think he's got to score 3 goals, because we're not going to go out there and win.
Yep.
I think
he has to score 3 goals.
I think Dave's right. He's going to go for it. It's the only way he knows, really.
Yeah, maybe having Mkhitaryan now actually reduces the choices, and actually then it becomes a little bit easier for him for his selection, because it does make, if your choices are less, it is a little easier. But yeah,
because El Nenny's been playing well and would have played, I think.
Yeah.
Because in Europe he's been playing 3, hasn't he? He's been playing 3, the Christmas tree. So, he's now not got potentially Jack, because he's injured at the moment, I think, or carrying a knock. He definitely hasn't got El Nenny. So he's got Ramsey, Xhaka, and another, Maitland-Niles, or Wilshere if he's fit. So he is pretty short on options.
Yeah, I mean, go on. I just remember we got the Champions League final playing Flamini as a makeshift left back, and
and Senderos,
and won the cup in '94 with one of the weakest sort of teams I can remember for a while, with top players suspended and injured and so on. So
he can't have watched what we all watched on Sunday and play Alex Iwobi. He cannot play Alex Iwobi in this game. I mean, I'm sorry, poor lad, but that was up there with the worst performances of the season by an individual player. Absolutely awful. I feel for him, but you can't play him in the semi-final of Europa League. Sorry, you can't.
No, wow. I think Niles. I think he has got a good shot to start. I think it would be so Wenger, wouldn't it, to play someone like Ainsley Maitland-Niles. He's always believed in giving young people a chance, and let's face it, this is his last real game at home. The Burnley game's going to be emotional for him, for players, for fans even. I think, we're 4 points now ahead of Burnley, so you would think I would probably lose at Old Trafford, but we're still okay-ish there and things like that. So, and that's if Burnley win all their games too. So I just think this is the big one. This is the one that, we'll be thinking, well, forget the Arsene Wenger stuff for a second. We want to win this game. And I just think I think he might throw a surprise like that. And whether it's a surprise, if Wilshere is actually injured and still is injured, then actually, again, choices have been reduced. But I can see a Niles or some sort of a surprise, happening. But yeah, we'll wait and see.
He did okay when he came on, didn't he?
Yeah, he done all right. Okay. Yeah. So, I don't know. It'll be interesting.
He's got a very interesting style, Maitland-Niles. His style is he looks so confident on the ball, like on Sunday. He can just drop a shoulder and beat somebody. And these are like seasoned pros. You've got people like Mark Noble who quite happily kick a shin or something. And he just dropped his shoulder a couple of times and just sauntered past him. So to quote Troy Deeney, he's got some cojones, I think.
All right. Well, listen. Let's have some predictions in terms of this Thursday. What do we stick your necks out on the line for me? Give me a prediction, each of you, for what you think will be the score on Thursday.
This is Nick. I'm going to say 2-0.
2-0.
I've raised my 1 from 2 to 2-0.
All right. Go on then, Akhil.
Dream result, that would be. I think they'll score. I think Anton Griezmann will probably score.
I forgot about him.
Yeah. And then just remember, he top goal scorer in the last major tournament, and, maybe we haven't heard as much about him this season, but, he's still a classy player. I really want it to be 3-1, but I think it's going to be 2-1, to us. But I just think that third goal could be so massive if we could get it. But I'm going to go 2-1.
All right, Chris?
Well, I will be the pessimistic yin to your optimistic yang, you lot, because I think this is going to be a 2-2 draw. I think we're going to concede. And I think it will be one of those where we're chasing a bit. And maybe we get a 2-2 draw. It feels a bit like that to me. And I'm struggling in myself, and I feel guilty for saying this, but I'm struggling in myself to see how we can do it over 2 legs, because I think, actually, Nick, like I kind of, I'm on the other side. I would have rather have played them in the final, because I think in a final it's a one-off game, and we know that this Arsenal team can get themselves up for those. But over 2 legs, I think we're gonna have trouble. So sorry to depress you, Dave. Say something positive, please.
No, I said 3-1 last time we were on it, and I'll still say 3-1 to the Arsenal. I'm sticking with my 3-1. I think the players will lift themselves through this game. This is the biggest game of the season. Those guys in there who've been given their head by Wenger, a lot of them owe him a lot. I think they'll do the business on Thursday. I think 3-1.
Yeah. Well, listen, man. I hope that that what you guys are predicting is what happens.
What's your prediction, Iyare? What's yours?
Do you know what? I'd love us to kind of shut them out. So 1 or 2-0 would do for me. 2-0. Let me go for 2-0. 2-0.
Well, we're either going to be very disappointed Gooners on Friday morning, or we're going to be very excited. There's no real middle ground.
I just feel like there's this whole thing going on now. There's this Roy of the Rovers, dreams come true, glorious kind of finish to this whole thing. I just feel like the universe, the stars, it's all lining up. That's where I see it. We're going to go past these. We're going to play Salzburg in the final. It's all going to be gravy, baby.
I'll add to my prediction as well. 3-1 and Luis Enrique to be in the director's box.
Oh,
controversial. Well, brilliant. Listen, man, this has been my first one, and you know what? It's been fun. Thank you very much, gentlemen.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Thank you.
Thank you.
I thought you could have ended up being a little bit belligerent, but you were all real gentlemen. And fair warms the cockles. That's what it does. So apparently, at this point, I'm supposed to kind of remind everybody listening that, you know what, they should kind of do a load of social following. Do you know what I mean? Hit subscribe buttons, likes, leave comments. Do you know what I mean? Email Akhil and tell him how great you think he is. All of that.
How much crap he talks, but yeah.
Just, I mean, look, in terms of Nick, where can people kind of find out more information about you if they want to kind of follow after hearing you on the air?
Me, I'm at Stroller Nick, or our work one is at Haters Teamwork.
All right, and Chris, people want to kind of check you out and give you a hard time after this. What do you do?
Yeah, it's at Suburban Gooner, and it's suburbangooners.com.
Beautiful, Dave.
Always Gooner Dave 66.
Akhil.
At 10 Akhil.
All right, listen, mate, gentlemen, I think we are done. All right, I really hope we get to do this again.
Up the Arsenal.
Me too.
Happy
Gunners.
Right, thanks for listening, everyone. Thanks for being with us.
This episode of the Gooner Ramble is sponsored by the new sporting betting app called Bookie. That's Bookee. Sign up using the promo code podcast. Deposit and bet £10 in multiple bets for a free £10 bet. Please bet responsibly.